CIA director was on a phone call with Mossad leadership earlier today and told them to back down after President Trump brokered this ceasefire. This is according to two sources who are familiar with the call, to individuals in discussions between U.S. intelligence, so the director of CIA, as well as Mossad leadership. There was a question of Mossad saying they wanted to go further. CIA director said no, because this is the president's word, and the president's order has been ceasefire. The ceasefire has come down no further, and put in as leverage if Mossad or the IDF continue to go further, that the United States would pull intelligence cooperation. Remember, this was done in Ukraine to try to also help with brokering a ceasefire there. So after that, Mossad backed down. This is huge information, only reported here on Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice with Jack Posobiec. Folks, this is where you come, because we've been ahead of the news for the entire game. The lamestream media can't keep up. Look, Rogan, walk us through this, because 2 weeks ago, right, the entire world was saying World War III is coming, the Strait of Hormuz is going to be closed, gas will be $6 a barrel, and there were serious risks at play. President Trump found a way to navigate all of this and is now in a position where he's, my favorite part of this, he congratulated both sides. Congratulations to everyone, including the Iranians. And then at the same time, though, this morning, I really have to say, slapping down both sides as well, like a couple of children for acting out. It's like how I'm with my kids. Walk us through how President Trump was able to pull this off, and how these neocon warmongers are just frothing because they didn't get their war.
Yeah, this was a masterpiece in foreign policy, in surgical strikes, in using peace through strength. This is the Trump foreign policy doctrine in action. We've actually seen this before, right? Congressman Matt Gaetz called this Soleimani 2.0. But I would take it even further. This could be ISIS 2.0. This could be the Houthis 2.0, right? Trump engages in negotiations. He gives people a chance. If they don't want to come to the table or they aren't being reasonable, he drops some bombs on senior leadership heads, or calls them out and says, I know where you live. He's done this to the Afghanistan leadership. And now he's done this. He's threatened publicly the Iranian leadership. And he says, listen, we can make a deal and you can be happy and you can live with your regime and your oil money, or you can FAFO. And, maybe that's the new name for it, the FAFO Trump foreign policy doctrine. But just absolutely masterful. There were some, people with egg on their face after this. I would say the war hawks look pretty foolish right now. They wanted World War III. I would say the panicans look a little less foolish for not necessarily knowing how Trump does this stuff. He's the same guy we've known for the last 5 years. And the ostriches, the pure isolationists, they look a little silly too, because you can't just hide from the biggest state sponsor of terror and hope they just suddenly turn nice. The people that look the best out of this are obviously President Trump, his administration, our U.S. military. God bless them. They did a great job. And the people that were pretty calm and rational about this, you can call them Trump loyalists. You can call them people that have just seen this show before. And we knew kind of what the outcome was going to be. Kim Jong-un, right, with North Korea, we knew what it was. A lot of mean tweets, some threats, maybe some airstrikes, and then a really good peace deal. And then in pure Trump fashion, he congratulates both sides and hopes they make a lot of money.
Well, and by the way, I'm seeing breaking news from Trey Yingst out there. He's saying that Israel's Home Front Command has lifted all restrictions on civilians that were put in place during the 12-day war with Iran. So we're calling it the 12-day war. President Trump has named this. I don't think historians will be able to find a better name for the 12-day war. That's clearly going to be the name of this thing. And it also sets a time frame of saying, look, this shouldn't turn into the 13-day war, the 14, 15, 16. It's the 12-day war, and that's it. But Rogan, when it comes down to it, President Trump has never said that he's against use of the American military. What he said is that he's against these forever wars, these regime change operations, these things that were pushed by the likes of Lindsey Graham, John Bolton, and so many others. because they have never found a war that they didn't like. And you got folks, I called him maniac Mark Levin, was just foaming. So I hate that word, ceasefire. I hate that word. I said, well, I'm sorry, but that's Trump's word. And the point being is, he said this was in the objectives of and the interests of the American people, and that's it. And I think a lot of those guys really exposed themselves of trying to turn MAGA into something that it never was.
Right. And as we've seen, MAGA is not very mobile. We've been set in our principles for a long time.
Yes.
And that's how we've stayed this entire time. We didn't want forever wars, but that is not the same as zero military action to protect strategic American national security interests. And that's what we saw here. And I think even people who were a little nervous about what was going on would agree that what was done was tempered, it was proportionate, and now we can all move on and get back to mass deportations, which is what we really want to focus on, is the domestic agenda. But again, this is a formula for success. We saw the Bush era doctrine of just invading countries and sitting there for 15 years and losing our troops and spending literally trillions of dollars. Or we've seen, let's just drop 20 bombs and call it a day, right? And you know, I remember in his first term, he did the same thing with the Taliban. He dropped a Moab, right? The mother of all bombs, and everyone cheered, right? And then he did the same thing with ISIS. And, you know, this is the same consistent foreign policy doctrine the entire time. I think there's just a little bit of hysteria on both sides. And both sides should, on the extremes of both sides. And, you know, Trump he just put himself in the history books once again. If he does not get a Nobel Peace Prize for doing this, and for now we're hearing there might be more Abraham Accords, potentially with Syria and Lebanon. Who knows who else might join? Hopefully we get Saudi Arabia. I mean, that is doing something that so many U.S. presidents have said they were going to do, bring peace to the Middle East, and Trump is actually doing it. And now we have to get the Gaza war ended as well.